Touchdown Tampa Bay, you're listening to the PewterCast.
Welcome to the PewterCast. Today is Tuesday, October 31st, 2017. Happy Halloween, everybody. And this is episode 50, the final episode. I'm Brent Allen, your host, and with me, as always, is the human beatbox, Ren Daxt. Ren, how's it going tonight, my friend?
I am not the human beatbox, Brent.
you like 30 seconds ago, you just said I'm the human beatbox.
I did, as a joke, because I was going, pew, and you thought it was like I had some effect I had on my computer. So I said, no, I'm the human beatbox. And now we're already alienating the listeners because we're talking about nonsense.
It's all right. It sounds cool, whatever you're doing.
Sure. Somehow I doubt that. But anyway, let's continue.
Fun. Let's continue. Ren, we've got a little bit of an announcement to make tonight. Now, we have been saying all year long that lots of changes are coming to the PewterCast, and we've been rolling them out kind of one at a time throughout the course of the summer and even a little bit in through the season. And want to just, I kind of alluded to it. It's the title of the episode. I'm kind of wanting to let everybody know that this episode 50, is the final episode of the PewterCast.
What?
It is.
I'm getting fired?
Well, here's what we mean by that.
Do I get a compensation package?
You will get 250% of your pay for the next 3 months. And but no, here's what's going on. Ren, we have 3 shows that come out every single week. There's the InstantCast, there's our new Buc in the News show. There's, in the off season, we've had the Training Camp Diaries, and we've had Talking Knox, we've had bonus episodes. But this show right here, the one that comes out in the midweek, this one that we've kind of always referred to as the main show, is the only one that we've ever given the title episode to, and we've numbered them. And so, this is episode 50. Now, the problem is that's so entirely misleading. And
so we're not episode 50.
It's not, because I just went back and looked. We've actually put out 118 different pieces of content. And I just don't feel like calling this show episode whatever is right anymore. It's just not what we do. It's not really even a main episode. It's the InstantCast, Buc in the News, this show, like all together make up what is the PewterCast. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm happy to announce, you and I, we talked about this for a couple of weeks. Moving forward after today, we will have our Buc in the News show that comes out on Saturdays throughout the season. On Sundays after the game, we have the InstantCast, and this is our midweek show. Will now be known as our Final Thoughts show. And it fits right in with the whole of what goes on here at the PewterCast. And I'm happy to make that change, because trying to keep track of these numbers is starting to drive me a little batty, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, going from, what would it be next week? I can't even think. We were naming the episodes after what would it be?
50,
51.
It'd be
okay.
51, yeah.
That was close. That was.
Well, no, but I mean, it's.
I know what you mean. It's just not really. It's just not accurate. It's horribly inaccurate. Yeah. So we're just taking away the numbers away. It's fitting that the Roman numeral for 50 is L, because we've been taking them.
we've got a few under our belts this year.
Yeah.
Oh.
So this is going to be the last L. So this is it.
All right.
For the 4-game losing streak, we're going off in grand fashion.
There we go.
Capital Roman L.
Well, why don't we go ahead and get into this episode, this L. This is the part where we would normally say that we have a guest who's coming on, and we've got a couple very cool ones in the works, but with Halloween this week and things just kind of being the way they are, this one's just going to feature Ren and me. So, Ren, high five. You and I are carrying the show. The last episode. So we're going to be giving our final thoughts on the game from this week, and we'll be giving grades out as we kind of put this one to bed and turn the corner a little bit. And then we'll take your comments, questions, and emails, and all of that and more is coming to you on this episode of the PewterCast.
wishing can't be right, and all you ever do is fight. But there's a reason that the road is long. It takes some time to make it courage strong. Hold on tight.
You're listening to episode 50 of the Pewtercast. And Ren, since it's just us this week, we've got a little bit more space. Our InstantCast show from this last week. Mm-hmm. It was a special one. Gotta tell you. It got a little hot, a little heated on some places. But here we are.
Brent cursed.
I did a lot. Here we are. Back to cool, back to even keel. Emotions are still there, but they've titrated a little bit. But as far as what?
Back to center.
Back to center. Back to chi, as I like to say. This past InstantCast, though, this is really, really fun. Ren, I've not told you this yet, is actually and now officially our fastest downloaded episode of the season so far. And it's well on its way to becoming the most downloaded episode of the season as well. So very, very cool. I don't know what kind of vagrants we got out there listening to this show, but...
Hey, download the show. I drop F-bombs. Download. Since we do all this extra time, did you watch the last episode of the Orville?
I have watched the first episode of Orville. I've not watched any of the others because I'm struggling to keep everything else going on right now. So it's on the list. It's just not on the priority side right now.
They're tackling some pretty cool social issues.
Yeah?
They are. It's there's one about having to change the sex of a baby at birth because by law they don't have females. It's an all male race, and every once in a winning the lottery or being struck by lightning blue moon, a female is born, but they have a surgery to change it to a male, and of course, but this last one was all about they had lost contact with some archaeologists from their time, and they went to Earth, and they went to this planet which was remarkably similar to Earth in the 21st century. But everyone wore these badges with a green up arrow or a red down arrow. And if you ended up getting, and you got it at 18, and if you end up getting over, I think it was 50,000 or 500,000, coffee shops wouldn't serve you. Downvotes, coffee shops wouldn't serve you. If you do something, crazy in public, people all had the same phone, and they'd pump it up to this thing called this live feed, and it was just what everyone watched. And then that's how they did their judicial system. So if you were caught by something, if you were caught and you were arrested, then you had to quote unquote go on your apology tour, and you went on shows like The View and and it was so great. It was they call it the apology tour. And they had, instead of a lawyer, basically he was the apology agent. Hey, do you have any skills? People tend to like you if you're funny or you can play an instrument or sing or something. They tend to forgive you more. And they went on shows maybe John Oliver's Late Night or something. Sure. And then you'd go into the people are still voting on you this whole time. And this is basically what their TV was this person, as you see what happens in Hollywood when someone screws up, for a week and a half, they go do all the late night shows and do their apology tour. They strapped you into this chair, and at the end of the vote, which has gone on probably for 2 days, if you hit 10 million downvotes, they lobotomize you. They call it correction. They take away all your aggressive feelings. So anyway, I just think they're really tackling some really cool subject matters with that show, and it's pretty funny. I mean, I'm enjoying the satire more than I am the humor, but I don't know why. Why did I throw that out there?
I keep waiting for you to bring this back around to the InstantCast or to Buccaneers or something.
There was something upvote or downvote. I don't remember. I don't remember.
I said that this last InstantCast is about to become the most downloaded episode of the season.
Go. Yeah, so we got all these downloads because we tell everybody we're going to say that drop F-bombs and go on rants, and now it's the most popular show. It's just. That just made me think.
Well, we're gonna lose our downloads because I am here to let people know we are back to Chi. We're back to PG-13. Oh, man.
So anyway, let's rock. All right, I got it. Sorry about that, everybody. Watch the Orville.
Watch the Orville. Well, you got
social issues are tough.
Listen, we're people out there. This is how Ren and I get the show to 2 hours plus. We've got a quota we've got to meet, and that's what we've got to do. These
are conversations we have, in between segments usually. 45 minutes go by. I go, hey, you want to start the next segment? Okay.
Sure, let's do that. But I guess we're going to get downvoted. Hopefully not, because our show is a PG-13 show. That's what we've always said. We're not saints around here, but we do like to try to stay mostly family friendly. Right. So that's where we are. But I want to thank everybody for the InstantCast who listened, everyone who's downloaded the show, everyone who joined us live at mixler.com/thepewtercast. Especially because we were a little bit later than normal. We went out about an hour later. Those who participated in the chat, it was one of our biggest chat rooms that we've ever had. To those who called in, it was a good show. All in all, it was a good show, kind of like the Orville.
I don't even know if people in the chat room were even listening to us, because they were firing. They were going back and forth. Not like they were arguing anything, but they had a lot to say.
Yeah.
I remember about halfway to the show, I sort of put my phone down, and then I came back to it like 20 minutes later, and there was like 227 unread messages that they have talked. I was like, wow.
Yeah,
that was definitely at least the most action.
It was a chatty chat room. And I think I said somewhere, like, I wish that I could post the transcript of the chat room for everybody else out there to see, because if you're just listening to the podcast feed of the InstantCast, you're not going to get to see that. And that's okay, because the podcast feed that's what it's there for. And the vast majority of people listen to it on the podcast feed. So shout out to you guys.
I think you can go, if you do go to Mixler and you follow us and then go to the chat room, even if we're off air,
you can go back and look at it.
You can scroll up and look at it.
That's cool. Well, there you go, guys. If you're interested in this weird little chat room thing that we're talking about, you can go do that. But Ren, let's bring it back around. Anything, kind of final thoughts? We had this game with the Panthers back at Raymond James Stadium. Of course, we lost 17-3. Everybody got pissed off. It is what it is. As we're looking to round this out, any final thoughts you've got? Anything, hanging out there?
Well, I guess there's two things. One, I'm surprised, but not really. I think this will start to come out tomorrow, honestly. People are going to realize how good the Panthers defense is.
Okay.
I said that on the InstantCast that it's the third time. I'm not exactly sure the third time. I think they beat Buffalo 9-6 or 9-3 in week 1. But they only let Chicago score 3 points the week before, and then this is the third time they've held people without a touchdown. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So the offensive performance, and it really wasn't that bad. It's just when we crossed the 40-yard line, we just started shooting ourselves in the foot with penalties and turnovers, basically. So I don't all this talk about the offense being bad. I think you should tip your hat more to the Carolina defense than you should for being like poor play calling, poor execution for sure. But for poor play calling and saying the offense is junk and no one knows what they're doing, I think you should definitely not go that way. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, man. After we had the InstantCast, it came out that Dirk Cutter thought at one point that Jameis was going to come out. I heard on another podcast that they saw actually Jameis was holding his arm, sort of against his chest, his throwing arm. I'm assuming that happened at the same time. That's the play Cutter was talking about. So when is it okay to shut Jameis down for the year? They keep saying that it's not going to get any worse, but if you let's just say it's a bruise, say you have like a really bad bruise on your thigh, and you have a job where once a week you get hit in the thigh for 3 hours. I mean, it's never gonna,
right? Yeah, you can't heal. You can't heal a bruise if you keep pushing on it.
Right, exactly. If you keep banging on it, so it appears that he picked up a bruise on top of the AC sprain. During the Buffalo game, and then obviously he at least it was extremely sore, hurt it during that Panthers game. So when's the proper time to shut Jameis down if the doctors don't shut him down this week? And then the second question being, which Roberto from Tallahassee brought up on the InstantCast, was do we start – which Ryan do we start, Fitzpatrick or Griffin?
Exactly. Well, let's tackle those one by one. Let's go back up to the Jameis question first, because in addition to what you're talking about there, I also read, I believe it was JoeBucksFan.com, possible it was Pewter Report. I don't remember, which getting those two confused seems ironic to me, but I don't remember which one. But one of them was talking about how a physician, a former team physician with, I think, the Chargers, and now he does like a bunch of consulting work and stuff. He was watching some video of Jameis, and
Joe Buck.
It was Joe Bucs, and he came to the conclusion that Jameis actually has a torn rotator cuff. And now that was just from watching film. That's never actually seeing any kind of diagnostic test. That's not examining Jameis himself. It's just watching his throwing motion and what he's doing, and something about how he's twisting his body to put some extra oomph on it, and it's still, going a little bit wobbly out there.
Cutter was asked that flat out, though.
Yeah.
He was. I don't remember if it was the after-game presser or Monday's presser, but, it was a very simple question. Does Jameis have a torn rotator cuff? And he answered no immediately.
Well,
and, and like I've said, a few times on past pods, is like, these guys don't lie to you.
Right.
They might dance around the question or tell you, like, I'm just not going to answer that. That's private. But they're not going, at least so far, they're not going to lie to you.
Yeah. So yeah. But to your point of, something, it certainly seems like something is there. Something is wrong. I really, I believe Cutter when he's, and it might even be a little bit of plausible deniability he's keeping for himself when he says, look, these things are medical decisions. If they come and tell him that Jameis can play, then he's going to put Jameis out there and let Jameis play. He lets them do that. Now, what happens behind closed doors with the medical staff, between Jameis and between the players and between whomever else out there to get them to say, yes, he can play, I don't know. And I certainly don't want to be accusatory. I don't want to drag up any weird stuff that's just not true in all that, but I don't know what all goes on with that.
I don't think they do that anymore.
Yeah, I really hope not.
Well, these guys are just worth too much money.
Yes.
Jameis is worth way more to the organization with his long-term health than pushing him, especially when you're 2-5.
Especially for this season. Yeah.
Yeah. The season's half over, and what are you going to get? 1, 2, 3 more games out of him? Squeeze it out of him if it's that bad?
Right.
Yeah, I don't think they really do that anymore.
No. I really hope not. That is something that personally is kind of always in the back of my mind of how do they make those decisions? Because here's the thing, and with Jameis, and you look at Jameis when he goes out to those press conferences, he's like, no, I'm fine. Right. Jameis, I think Jameis could have a bone sticking out of his leg and be like, what bone? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm fine.
I can run.
Wound. Yeah, it's just a flesh wound. I've got a coconut for you. When is the question being, when is the appropriate time to bench Jameis? And I think the appropriate time is when he really needs to rest. Roberto from Tallahassee, Mr. Incognito, who called into the InstantCast show, and maybe it was even you, Ren, I don't exactly remember, but listen, when it is medically necessary or even medically recommended, I would even loosen it up to just if it's medically recommended that Jameis sit, especially at this point in the season. Look, guys, the truth is mathematically, the Buccaneers are not eliminated from the playoffs. The season is not over mathematically. Is the reality of the fact, are the Buccaneers going to win enough games over the rest of the season that we will get into the playoffs? Probably not. I hesitate to put a definitive thing on that. Now here's the thing. I believe in my Buccaneers. Listen, I stay till the very last whistle blows. I stay at the stadium because I believe that at any point something could possibly happen that the Bucs could still come into it. I don't care. But there just does come a point when you still have to sit back and recognize, listen, they're just going to kneel out the rest of the game, and they've got it. So, yes, mathematically the Bucs are still in this season, so they're going to play, and they're going to keep playing, and they're going to do what they need to do until they can't anymore. But at this point, to me, I think as soon as it's medically recommended that Jameis sits out, I think he should. When
it's medically recommended he's going to sit out, he is. The real question is, say he never gets, the doctors never shut him down, but it's obvious, once a game where it's like, ow, he hurt it again. He's really in pain. How bad does the record do you have to wait till you're actually mathematically limited for the playoffs before you shut it down? I mean, what's the point? Are you just going to play all 16 games and just wait till we'll have the off season to heal? Or do you want to start the healing process as soon as possible in case, complications come up, shoulders or funny things?
Let me ask, are you asking me what I think the Bucs will do or what I think the Bucs should do as far as that goes?
I'm asking you what you think you should do. What you think the Bucs should do? I
think the Bucs should, if he is not able to go to practice, if he needs all this extra rest time, I think they should give him a week off and see how he's doing. If he injures an AC sprain and then he comes out and things are wobbly, things aren't being thrown really. Listen, we've talked about Jameis not being super accurate, especially on the deep ball. His accuracy was laughable this last week, I thought. It definitely seemed off with him. So at that point, to me, I think, listen, you should go ahead and sit him. Fitzpatrick is in there. He's fine. He's healthy. He can go. If Ryan Griffin is available to go, I don't know. I mean, listen,
they haven't brought him back yet.
No, they haven't. And listen, we saw when Doug came back, that first game was. We saw when Quan came back, having not actually played football for a bunch of weeks. That first game was real rusty. I feel like Fitzpatrick would be, if the goal is to win football games every week with the people you have out there, our best bet without Jameis right now is going to be Fitzpatrick.
I don't think so.
And that. Okay, and we could talk about that. The one thing that I'm relying on that is the performance that we got out of Fitzpatrick for that one half that he did go in, or quarter, or whatever it was, and the fact that he has just been he's been the guy who's been suiting up. That's the only reason I see that. Now, who would I like to see? I'd like to see Griffin in there. Well, I've said since the preseason that I want Griffin to be our guy. I really wasn't sure why Fitzpatrick was here. Turns out it's a good thing he was, because Griffin wound up getting hurt.
It's the exact same reason.
So I would like to see Griffin get out there. I would like to see him take those reps. I'd like to see what he can do. But if I'm having to make that decision, I think Fitzpatrick is probably the guy who's ready to go immediately if it's not Jameis. And I think the Bucs should sit Jameis. I don't think they will. As long as he can go, I think they're going to let him go. And until he, if he takes another shot and he gets injured, then they might sit him. But outside of that, I think that's what they're going to do. But I don't think that's what they should do.
Yeah. I would rather have Ryan Griffith play. I mean, if this was an open training camp, I mean, like, quarterback job's wide open, and all the guys in camp, and their name are Jameis Winston's, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Ryan Griffin. If you say they're all taken in the third round, or say they're all taken somewhere in the third and fifth round, you can give them the same careers they've already had. Give them all the stats, keep their age and everything. If it was an open competition and you judged it on knowing the offense and who threw the ball better, especially the deep ball, Ryan Griffin would have been your starter.
Agreed.
Through training camp.
Agreed.
He has the offense down. If this is going back a while, but when I for the newer listeners, I went to every single open training camp there was, and it was just about every day. And then I'd come home and kind of put my notes together and do like a 45-minute Ren's training camp journal. And I was talking about what was going on, and I had some little, funny side stories, and I'd talk about how the indoor facility was going up. But day in and day out, Ryan Griffin was the best quarterback as far as knowledge of the offense and throwing the ball. He was also, while I talked about the tight ends, like you hear all the time, Dirk Cutter talk about it, how Jameis and Cameron Brate get all this extra work after practice. Mm-hmm. Well, they're not the only ones that are over there. Alan Cross showed up, O.J. Howard showed up, Anthony Auclair showed up, but you know who else was also over there every time?
Griffin.
Ryan. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Griffin was over there. Yep. And he would walk Anthony Auclair like through the patterns, like step by step, and showing him how to lean on the defensive back here because you're going to cut and break towards the sideline. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was taking it step by step by step. And let's face it, this is third year in the offense. Mm-hmm. Dirk Cutter's offense, he's been in it just as long as Jameis Winston. So,
right.
If I had a choice,
and the Bucs have liked him enough to keep him around. The Bucs have liked him enough to use up a roster spot for him the last bunch of years. He's yes.
Yeah. So
agreed.
I mean, all this is sort of a moot right now because he's not officially on the roster.
Right.
I expect to see that this week. I really do. But to get back to the original question, obviously, as soon as the doctors say he can't go, he can't go. Mm-hmm. It all depends on how the team plays. If the team goes on a little win streak and they're still not mathematically, eliminated, and we're in week 10 and James is ready to go, we'll bring him back in. By all means.
Yeah.
As soon as the team loses its next divisional game, the season, as far as the playoffs, is over. Of course, the season's not over. They're going to play all the games, but
sure.
As far as making the playoffs, I think as soon as the next divisional game you lose, unless it's very late and all these things change, I just don't think you, especially if it's next week, that will put the Saints like at 6-2, and it will be 2-6, and that's 4 games. You got to win 4 games in a row and hope they lose those 4 games, just to even be tied. So,
right.
The next division game, I think they lose. So that's where I am with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think they should. I just don't think they will. I think as long as he is cleared to play, they're going to play him. And I don't like that. But at the same time, I can understand why they would do it, but I don't agree with that call. And as you and I have said, we're also not the coach there. We're not the GM. Right. We've never done
our
that.
jobs aren't on the line.
Exactly.
Or are they? This is the last show, after all.
It's the last episode. It's not the last show. This is the last episode. Yep. That's a very good point you bring up there, Ren. I kind of along those same lines.
Right.
Want to address something with our fellow Buc fans out there. And this is, I thought about kind of keeping this and bringing this up in the Buc in the News later on this week, but the problem is it doesn't really fit there for what we're trying to do on that show. So I think this week, more so than ever, we have seen lots of talk among Bucs fans about benching Jameis and about firing Cutter and bringing back Gruden and all this other stuff, right? This week, especially with the trades, deadlines, and things happening. So lots of talk going on about that. And honestly, I think all of that is very par for the course. I don't know if it's necessarily peculiar to this particular fan base. It might be to all fan base across the NFL. I don't know. I'm only been a Tampa Bay fan. This is the only one I'm familiar with. And when you lose 4 in a row, this is what happens within our fan base. People start calling for people to be fired, people to be benched. You hear this phrase a lot. What could it hurt? What's the worst that could happen? Right? A lot of that is happening, and that's fans talking to each other.
Right.
While I may have a problem with a lot of people talking about that, it's just fans spouting off, especially on social media, whatever. Even when you hear a tale of a group of fans exiting Raymond James Stadium after the game chanting Gruden's name.
Right.
Like, okay, come on, guys.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Here's the thing that's kind of got me a little there are quote unquote articles that are being written about how the Glazers are really considering bringing back Gruden, how they're close to bringing back Gruden, how the Bucs are definitely going to bench Jameis Winston if ... happens.
Articles?
These are quote unquote articles. Okay, these are
blog posts.
Yes, exactly. Basically what it is, it's everything that the fans are chanting for that's being written down as if it's a fact. And the problem is these news articles aren't news articles. That's exactly what where I'm going with that, Ren. They're just blog posts. It's some fan somewhere who's having his own
like us.
Exactly. But we're not reporting news. We're not. All we do is comment on the news. That's the difference here. We're not sitting here saying, "Hey, listen, I've got the inside track, and I hear the Glazers are really close to signing John Gruden and getting rid of Cutter."
Yeah, where do you hear that from?
Hey, I don't, and these people don't
Ira
either.
alluded to it on his podcast.
Well, listen, you know what? Ira at least has some level of credibility when it comes. If he's personally saying that firsthand. There's at least a smidgen of credibility when it comes to something like that. But even then, I would take it a little bit. I would take that with a big, huge, flarging grain of salt. Because here's the deal: number one rule for this team and for the Bucs, and especially the Glazers, who do not talk about anything until they have to, is they don't make a decision or announce a decision until they have to. They don't make major coaching decisions in the midseason. The organization itself, I was just looking at something. They won't even commit to whether or not Jameis is practicing until they get to practice tomorrow. And it's basically, look, if you see him practice, then he's practicing. If he's not, then he's not. They're not committing the team doesn't commit to stuff. What we saw with Doug Martin this whole offseason, they never committed to bringing Doug Martin back. Right? Yeah. They just said, listen, we'll see when we get there. They've never committed to Jameis whether or not he's going to play until it came time for them to say it's time to play. They don't commit to people on the injury report until, Cutter says, listen, you'll see that on the injury report. I'm not telling you about it early.
He did say Grimes was out already. That was weird.
For next week?
Yeah.
I feel like I saw that. I feel like
that was really weird. Yeah, you're right. He doesn't. He has been very, especially this year. He even came out and said he's like, I've been a little loose-lipped about the injuries, in the past. This year, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
and he hasn't. People would ask him, and the injury report's going to come out in an hour, and he still won't tell them. Yeah. He's like, well, you have to wait for the injury report. But yeah, he came out this week. Was like, yeah, Brent's already a no-go. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. So that and that is the rarity. That right. Cutter would do something like that. And it's not just Cutter. I mean, Jason, how many words, how much have we actually heard from Jason Light since the season started this year?
No, you never do.
Nothing. We heard a ton from him throughout the offseason, but we didn't hear anything from him really once the season started. We're certainly not hearing from the Glazers. So I say all of this and I bring all of this up because what I'm seeing happening is fans are talking about all this kind of stuff. They want to talk about it. They want to spout off about it. They want to ask questions. They want to float the idea of, hey, should we do this? Should we not? That's fine. But fans, let's be careful. And this is just my recommendation. That's all. I'm not telling you what to do. It's just my recommendation. When you see these articles that come out, check the source and see where they're coming from. These aren't legit sources, and they have headlines on them that seem definitive, and it's the definition of clickbait, guys. And when you go in and you read the article, and it's like, well, maybe they are. It reads like a freaking National Enquirer article. No legit sources are named. It's all speculation. It's fake news. It's the definition of fake news. It's being shared and it's passed around on social media like fire, and people are eating it up. So, do what?
En fuego.
En fuego. And grantedly, mostly people are reading the headlines and then commenting on it. So, my recommendation: don't buy into it. Be wary when you see stuff like that. Don't even respond to it. Because it's all hearsay anywhere. So, yeah.
Well, I have something for these people that have been shouting Gruden, and everyone thinks that Gruden was this great football coach for the Bucs.
Ooh, tread lightly, Ren. Tread lightly.
I'm not going to tread lightly. I'm just going to spit out facts.
Yeah, do it. Do it. Facts. We deal in facts on this show?
Sometimes. When we're trying to prove a point. it's kind of like the girlfriend that dumps you, and then she sort of gets hot. She drops some weight and starts using tail and mane shampoo, and her hair glistens, and she just sort of looks better, and you're like, man, why did I ever break up with her? And then you get back with her, and it takes like a day and a half. You're like, oh yeah, my bad. I'm sorry. I know, I know. I talked to you for 3 weeks and lied to your face and made up all these things to get you back. But yeah, I did not. I'm very sorry.
This is why we broke up.
Okay. This is why we broke up.
Yeah.
John Gruden, 2002, went 12-4, won all 3 playoffs games, and won the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Okay. After that, John Gruden went 45-51 as a Buccaneer head coach with only 2 playoff appearances and lost them both. Mm-hmm. The year after the Super Bowl with that great defense, one of the best 5 defenses of all time, went 7-9, missed the playoffs. The year after that, 5-11, won the Super Bowl. The next 2 years, only won 12 games. He won 12 games in 2002. Then he had 11-5 season, first in the division. Lost to the Redskins in a wild card game. Next year, 4-12. First in the division, last in the division. And then finished up 9-7 his last 2 years, which is weird because one of them was first place in NFC South, of course, lost the playoff game to the Giants. Mm-hmm. And then next year he was 9-7 and was third in NFC South and didn't go to the playoffs. So of 7 years mm-hmm. as the Buccaneers head coach, went to the playoffs 3 times. Only won 3 playoff games, which all were in the Super Bowl season. Uh-huh. And he had a below 500 record 3 times. Worse than mm-hmm. 8-8. He had mm-hmm. a 7-9, a 4-12, and a 5-11. So, you remember Gruden because, you see him all the time on TV and mm-hmm. you hear him
He was fiery. We liked him.
He had a cool nickname, and
he had that
did bring us. He brought us the Super Bowl, and he's always sort of in our faces. He made sure he came to. He made sure he got himself on Hard Knocks. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't leave the building. One time on the broadcast, he actually said, "I'd love to get my hands on that young quarterback." Gruden's never had a young quarterback. Uh-huh. He had Rich Gannon, and he had Brad Johnson. When he was a head coach, he has no proven young quarterback that he's developed. Mm-hmm. He was on the staff, Green Bay staff, when mm-hmm. Brett Favre was there, but he had nothing to do with it. I mean, right. He was like the wide receivers coach or something like that. So for all these people that are chanting Gruden and bring him back and all this kind of stuff, look at the numbers, because besides that first year, which a lot of people that argue it's Tony Dungy's team, which it really wasn't, because he brought in something like 19 free agents and totally revamped the offense. It was it was Monte Kiffin's defense. Mm-hmm. But after that, after the Super Bowl year, which is first year, mm-hmm. he went 45-51 as a head coach. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, and I would.
That's not good, by the way.
No, it's not. As we often do in as Buccaneer fans, we can bring up that there were a few mitigating factors over those years, but it was still a roller coaster ride of a bunch of years. We won the Super Bowl, and then we went on this. We've been on this roller coaster ride, and then here's the thing I can say: at least with Gruden, with the roller coaster ride, there were some ups as well as some downs. Once we got rid of Gruden, it's just been a lot of down. You know. I think Raheem Morris, didn't he actually have a pretty decent season there one year? Raheem did.
Yeah.
But,
his first year, he went 10-6.
Yeah.
But honestly, it was the easiest schedule I'd ever seen.
Sure.
We were playing, I think I don't remember what division we were playing, but besides our division games, we were playing teams we were playing the Browns, the 49ers, mm-hmm. The Chargers would have been a tough game. We were playing the worst of the worst,
sure.
And we just happened to, win some of those games. And we went 10-6 and missed the playoffs. Another 10-win season where we didn't get in. Mm-hmm. But we had no business being 10-6. And then the next year, as you've probably heard the tale many times where, we won 10 games, we're good. And they didn't go sign any free agents. And then, we just got smothered the year after that. Just got buried.
Right. So, but my point remains, it was this roller coaster ride with Gruden. Since Gruden, it's been mostly down, like all down until Cutter. Last year, that's why last year was such a big deal that we got to 9-7. Yay. We finished with a winning season. Yay. Listen, guys, Cutter, he is 23 games into his career as a head coach. I know this is his third season with the team, but as a head coach, these 23 games, and in those 23 games, he's 11 for 12, 11 and 12.
It's only his second season as a head coach.
Is that what I just said?
You said third season.
It's his third season with the team. It's his second season as head coach. Thank you. Let me clarify. Yeah, let me be clear on that. Second season as head coach. It's 23rd game. It's not time to change the head coach. My God. And you and I, Ren, we've both been saying, a lot of our callers have been saying, listen, stick with Gruden, or not Gruden, sorry, stick with Cutter. We can't keep changing. I think the Glazers, I hope the Glazers, let me rephrase that. I hope the Glazers have heard the vast majority of fans out there, the ones that are there's a lot of fans out there making noise. There's also a lot of fans out there that are very rightly going, we can't keep changing head coaches. Right. Just stay with the head coach. We can't keep changing these. It's not time to change them yet. Now, there are people who may want to make some coaching staff changes, and we talked about that on the InstantCast, and I've heard some other podcasts this week talk about that as well. I think that's right, and I think that's fine. But to redo the entire thing all over again with firing Cutter and bringing in Gruden, guys, that is just dumb.
Who are you going to bring in?
Exactly.
I mean, if I wouldn't bring in Gruden.
No, I wouldn't bring in. Oh, and that's the other thing, Ren. To the thing you were talking about with the girl that you used to date. Listen, I had a rule growing up, and I learned this from an older guy who told it to me, and so I'll pass this on. Once you break up with somebody, never go back out with them. Almost always never, because there's a reason, and it's for what there's a reason you broke up in the first place. And you tend to remember the good things, and you don't remember the bad things when you're reminiscing. And you guys do that right now. Think about lost loves of your life. Generally speaking, you tend to remember some of the good times, especially if you're pining for something right now. And that's what people are doing. But anyway, moving on.
PlayStation 1, Tomb Raider.
Ren's having nostalgic memories right now. He's having feelings for Lara Croft. Yeah. So I warn fans, don't just be careful with those articles. And as Ren just said, Gruden, listen, I love Gruden's great. I'm fine to have him in the Ring of Honor. I am very appreciative for what he did with his team and bringing us to the first Super Bowl. And I would make the argument that the team would not have gone to the Super Bowl that year without Gruden. Like he was a huge piece and a huge component to that. I think it's very, very unfortunate that Bruce Allen was his general manager during his time. I think that was a big factor in the roller coaster ride. But anyway. So that said, Ren, do you have any other final thoughts as we're kind of rounding? Because it's supposed to be final thoughts on the game. I think we might be avoiding talking about the game because we just don't want to. But any kind of final thoughts, as things are kind of rounding out this week, and we'll get to grades here in just a moment.
Well, I said most of it on the InstantCast. I thought the defense played really well. Yeah. Carolina had to put together a perfect drive to score their first touchdown. 17 plays. I mean, what kind of offense runs 17 plays to score a touchdown? That, wonder why they can't score any points. You got to run 17 plays to get down the field, then, Jesus, throw the ball a little deeper, which he did quite a few times, but Cam would wait till third down, and then he'd fire like a pass that had like a 22% chance of being completed, which I kept thanking him for. So the defense played great, and he threw up a 50-50 ball in the end zone in the fourth quarter, and Justin Evans never saw it. Like, he never looked up and located the ball. He was sort of playing the man, and it looked like it was one of those things where he stepped in a pothole and sort of lost his balance, and by the time he saw the guy going up, it was just over. So, credit to Cam. He took the chance, and his 22% came up, and he caught it. But besides that, those two scores and then a field goal at the end of the second quarter, if that's all your defense gives up, I thought they played really well, even with absolutely zero pass rush. I mean, think about that. They never recorded a quarterback hit on Cam Newton. Not a sack, a hit.
Mm-hmm.
And they still couldn't move the ball. So I will also maybe everyone's sort of been poo-pooing this wind issue.
Mm-hmm.
Cutter was one of the first things he said after game press conference was about the wind. It was some trouble. And then people were, well, Cam had to throw in it. Well, look at Cam's numbers. Cam didn't have a great game.
No, actually, if you look at the numbers between the two teams side by side, they're really similar. Like, they're almost exact.
Besides the two interceptions and fumble. Yeah.
They had we had 3 turnovers. They had 1. Which, yes, but everything else, I mean, they had 63 plays. We had 63 plays. They had 254 yards. We had 279 yards. They had 4 yards per play. We had 4.4 yards per play. They had 14 first downs. We had 16 first downs. Yeah. Actually, by these sounds, we should have we won, but they're really close.
We should have won 20-17.
Right. I mean, these are really close,
14.
Really close numbers.
Yeah. So it was a self-destructive offense.
Yeah.
So now, I think Mike Shula is probably the worst play caller that I know in the league. Now, I don't follow all the teams, obviously, so I pretty much know the teams that score a lot or that play a lot on Sunday night or Monday night, which this year seems to be the Kansas City Chiefs every time I look up, they're on TV.
Right.
And, the coordinators for the Saints and the coordinators for the Falcons and the coordinators for the Panthers, because we play them twice a year and they're our division. Mike Shula was a whipping boy and was here. We had Tony Dunn, the guy that runs the Cat Chronicles podcast up there.
Mm-hmm.
He said Mike Shula's sort of been the whipping boy, and I doubt it's changed with the way this offense is going now. You saw Cam get so frustrated the week they were playing the Bucs. Reporter asked something about explosive plays, and he just said next question and then took off. Just left the press conference. So I'm saying all that because I'm not totally sold on this defense yet. I'm sure no one else is. Even if you're the biggest Mike Smith proponent, and you think it's like execution, the players aren't doing what they're supposed to, you still can't be like, okay, you can't, even though this game was what you're looking for, even had 3 and outs quite a few times, kept them under 20 points. You can't feel good about they're going to do that against Drew Brees and the Saints. You just can't. So, good game by the defense. Okay game by the offense. They self-destructed. And, that's sort of it. Offensive line was a bit disappointing. But, once again, Carolina's defense is really, really good. They really are.
Yeah, I'll give all that to you. I don't really have any final thoughts on the game personally, Ren.
Yeah.
I don't. I know last week I talked a little bit kind of in this section about, maybe poison in the locker room as far as culture goes.
Right.
And things like that. The more I've thought about that, I don't know that that's it. I don't know that there's anything that's poisoning the locker room.
No.
Okay, so let me travel back down that road that I know could be like easy excuses, but
if you're going to say culture, I'm going to put my headphones down.
I'm not going to say culture. I'm going to say, I wonder if maybe just leaders aren't leading. Because you got to ask what's missing, right? It's not talent. We have plenty of talent. It's not skill. We've got plenty of skill. So the only thing I can do is look and see what's different from this year to last year. And,
Ping pong table.
Do what?
Ping pong table.
Ping pong table is new this year. But I don't see it just seems like the leadership doesn't seem to be there. That's something that the players aren't talking about a lot. We haven't heard it talked about a lot really since training camp of, whether it's coming from Jameis or from one of the other players. It's So I don't know. That's the only. I'm on that mission right now. That's the thought that's rolling around in my head as we sit here at 2-5. Season looks all but gone. We have a half-injured quarterback. We have schemes that are questionable at best right now. Mm-hmm. People calling for different people's jobs, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's happening. The thing that I'm rolling is just what's different from last year to this year that's not happening, because I don't believe that it's skill. I don't believe that it's talent. I think that's one of the reasons why we didn't see the Bucs go out and make any big trades this year. Lots of blockbuster trades happened today as we record this. Bucs were not in that thing. Why? Because we have the talent. The guys are there. We're just not putting it together. And so what's missing? And that's what I'm looking for over the next couple of weeks. That's what I'm trying to read between the lines. What is it that's missing? And, to me, it starts with leadership. Maybe leaders aren't leading. I don't know. So that's
what about Jameis giving up his pregame pep speech?
I'm not sure that I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
When he's on the sideline, eating them W's. We got to stack those W's. Just eat them up. Or, I know that no man's going to let some other man come into his house and take something from him.
Right. Jameis isn't doing that anymore?
I'm just saying, do you think you should stop?
Oh, should he stop?
Because it sounds like there's no voice from the offense at all except for Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
And then when he's doing the pregame speech, now he's the voice for the whole team. So there's no voice from the defense when they're all together. It's Jameis Winston. And then when it's just the offense, the only voice you hear is Jameis Winston.
Well, I got to tell you, in the stadium last week, Quan was doing a big pep talk to the team just before they went back into the locker room. Before, right after warmups, before they came out for the big introductions. Quan was doing a big, huge jumping around and pounding his chest. And, of course, we couldn't hear what they were saying. But should Jameis give that? I don't know that he should give that up. I'll say this. Leader, if that's what people are limiting Jameis's leadership to, that he can go out and give a really good pep talk, I'll tell you that that's not leadership. When Jameis asked Gerald McCoy last year to step up and lead more, I really hope that he wasn't just asking him to give bigger pep talks, because that's not leadership. That's just giving a pep talk, That's just trying to get guys hype. Should he give that up? Maybe not. I don't know. Should other people be involved in that? Yeah, I definitely think so. Part of leadership is getting others involved. So, bringing others into that. Leadership happens all the time. And when I say all the time, I literally mean all the time, not just by example, but it's intentional. And it happens in the locker room. It happens in the cafeteria. It happens in the weight room. That's the leadership. Last year Jameis wrote a big thing of leadership. Actually, remember that letter that Jameis wrote last year? That's being intentional. That's leading your team. That's leading out. That's something that's extra that gets done. I'm not saying that Jameis needs to go do the letter every year, but
that's kind of what I mean. It's like, it's always like so intense. It's kind of like listening to Ray Lewis all the time. It's like, come on, bro. Chill out and have a fudgesicle.
Yeah.
Do you have to be standing on your pulpit as you're ordering, your eggs?
Yeah, I don't. Well, that's the thing. Leadership also doesn't happen from a pulpit. Leadership happens, in the grind, next to each other. And so, something I didn't talk about, and I've never said this, it's just in the back of my head. Remember at Hard Knocks this last year? I think it was at the end of episode 1. We learned that Jameis listens to all these motivational speakers, and, that's the first thing he has pumping in his brain at 5:30 in the morning when he's going to work and whatnot. That's listening to motivational speakers is great. If Jameis wants to be a leader, motivational speakers are not leaders. They're motivators. There's a difference. And there's a lot that I think Jameis could probably still learn about leadership. I think there's a lot that Coach Cutter could learn about leadership. And I have my own thoughts on that, and this is neither the time or place to go into all of that. But
no,
you guys don't want that, yeah.
In my head, I'm apologizing for sort of going down this train. If you listeners don't know, Brent is a student. He likes to say, and I'm not saying that he's wrong, but he's a student of leadership. Like this is sort of one of his things that it's almost like a hobby for him.
It is. It very much is. And so I will end it by saying
started on it.
Yeah, and Ren just did. But I will end this whole thing by simply saying, if the limit of Jameis's leadership is being in the pulpit, whether it's getting him hyped before the game or doing a letter or whatever, that's not really leadership. And Jameis could still, but he can be a leader. He just needs to learn what those other aspects are. And I think that that's something we're not seeing this year.
Well, maybe he is. We're just not, the camera's not pointed at him.
Exactly. And that's what I mean when I say I wonder. All right, Ren, talking about grades for the game, how would you grade out offense, defense, special teams, and then the team as a whole for the Carolina game?
Offense, we're going to give them a C. I don't think it was nearly as bad as the score showed. They had costly penalties. Mm-hmm. As I've said before, as soon as they hit the 40, they started going backwards. They only had one play in the red zone, and then Jameis got sacked, which made it be the only play in the red zone for the entire game. So you look at that 3 points, one play in the red zone, you think, oh my God, the offense was terrible. It really wasn't. They could move the ball against Carolina. Now, it was slow going, but they could do it. I don't think Carolina consistently could move the ball against the Bucs defense. I just didn't. So I'm giving them a C. I thought they ran block. The line blocked for Doug Martin very well in the second half. First half was a little shaky. Just the opposite, though, as far as pass protection. Pass protection was pretty good in the first half, shaky in the second half. Mm-hmm. So obviously the run blocking, that's how Doug Martin ran. No one really dropped any balls. I think Mike might have. It's hard to tell if it was Mike's fault or Jameis's fault because Jameis was pretty erratic for most of the day. So, yeah, just everyone was just average. Defense, I'm giving them an A. I thought they played that well. A team having to go 17 plays, if you did that 100 times, I think 90 of them, they would shoot themselves in the foot and not even be able to get a field goal. 17 plays is just an astronomical number of plays to drive down and get a touchdown. So, and like I said, the other one was just a 50-50 ball. So I gave him an A. Special teams, I'm also giving an A. In that swirly wind, Murray came in there and drilled a deep one. I think it was 41 yards. Mm-hmm. And then with the swirly wind, Anger pin him down there. Mm-hmm. I think the Panthers punter had a better game. But I think he had more opportunities to do it. I think the Bucs are inside the 10 twice. But anyway, and it was good to see that Chris Godwin, who sort of lost where he was during the Buffalo game, figured it out and got that and batted the ball out of the
stepped in for Josh Robinson and
yeah, and he's done pretty well. I mean, he would have downed it on the 1 foot line, but he just when he went to plant his foot, it just hit the white line. In the Buffalo game, so it's cool to see that he figured that out real quick and didn't repeat his mistake, and then did come up with the down inside the 1 yard line play. So that is a 2 A's and a C, and it's going to sound weird. I'm going to have to give him a B minus. I don't care what it averages out to. I can't give him a B because they only scored 3 points and lost the game. But I just don't think it was. If we had won the previous 3 games, people would feel really good about this game. Okay, the offense has scored a lot of points. Looks like we're, put 27 up, a very good defensive Buffalo. It was windy. It just wasn't their day. Like if we had won 3 and then lost this game, people would be making excuses for the loss. Sure. Now, this being the 4th loss, excuses are up. Everyone's looking for answers now. That's why you see all this weird stuff on social media. It's like everyone's like, we're losing. Why? So you're grasping at anything that makes sense just to get us out of this losing streak as fans. So I'm giving them a B-. It's weird. It sounds weird. Perhaps the offensive line didn't play as well as I may have given a little more credit because the run blocking in the second half, but that's my grade, B- overall, with a 3-point being losing by 2 touchdowns and only scoring 3 points. So well, figure that out.
Ren, as you just said, we have lost 4 in a row and the excuses are out. And I said on the InstantCast, and I meant it. I think I said last week, and I meant it as well, that I'm done with moral victories. I'm done with all of that stuff. So, these grades may be a little more subjective rather than objective, like I usually try to make them. So for that, the offense, I'm giving you a D. Listen, you put up 3 points, that's below average. And that's what D means. Did you completely fail? No, I don't think you completely failed. But I do think you played below average, and I think the scoreboard proved it. So I give them a D, and that's my reasoning for that. The defense, I give them a C. They were average. You didn't allow Carolina to run up the scoreboard. You limited them to 17 points. That's average. Good. That's good. That's fine. I'm satisfied with that. You had the turnover. That was great. Still missing the pass rush, which it's hard to blame you. You just don't. That would be a place where we're missing talent right now. Okay, fine. I'll give you that. But still, to me, it was an average game for the defense. I might be being a little bit hard on them, but that's where I am on that. I think they were average. I didn't think they were particularly above average. I certainly didn't think that they were excellent. So I give them a C for average. Special teams, though, I'm going to go with you. I think they were at an A. I think they were excellent in this game, as they usually are. Special teams remains to be the highlight, I think, of our team, and that's sad. That's so sad to me. But I give them an A. I mean, Brian Anger was on point this week. Patrick Murray on point this week. Our special teams guys around them on point this week. So that to me brings, when totaling it all up, the team gets an F. Here's where I am. If you lose, you fail. At this point, you lose, you fail. I'm done with everything else. It's cut and dry. It's really not even a grade for me anymore. It's a pass-fail system. It's you either lose or you win. You failed. I don't care how good your offense played. I don't care how good your defense played. I don't care how good special teams played. If you lose the game, you fail. So to me, this team gets an F. Now, I'm keeping this PG-13. If you want to hear something more, go back to the InstantCast. But I'm giving this team an F, and you can tell me I'm wrong, but that's the grade I'm giving them.
No, pass fail. I get it. It is. If it's pass fail, it's a fail, brother. I feel you.
If you lose, you fail. If you win, then I'll grade you. We'll talk about the other grades. But at this point, if you lost, you did not achieve your goal at all. You failed. So, that's the one I'm giving them. All right, Ren. Well, that is going to wrap it up for this segment. Now, fans, we're going to turn this one back on you. We'd like to know your thoughts on our thoughts. We gave a lot of thoughts regarding the game, kind of the state of the Bucs and all that sort of stuff. You can let us know your thoughts by shooting us an email to thepewtercast@gmail.com. You can find us out on Twitter @thepewtercast or on facebook.com/thepewtercast. We do respond to all forms of feedback, and it's one of the more fun aspects of being a part of this Bucs fan community, and there has been lots of conversation happening out there on social media this week. So please make sure you connect with us there. Well, guys, coming up next, we've got some of your fellow fans who have sent in their thoughts on the game. So that should be real fun as we get to our fan interaction segment. Stay with us, guys. We'll be right back.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Right now, for you, the Pewtercast listeners, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to check out their service. This is a great way to check out Jason Buick's book all about the history of our beloved Buccaneers, the good and the bad. The Yucks tells the story of how Tampa was awarded an NFL expansion team in 1974 and the trials and tribulations and eventually the victories that marked those early years. It's a Hollywood-type story that you don't want to miss. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/thepewtercast. Again, that's audibletrial.com/thepewtercast for your free audiobook. This is episode 50 of the Pewtercast, the final episode. And it's time for your emails, comments, questions, and basically your ideas of the game. And Ren, as always, we are going to start with our iTunes reviews. And this week, we have no new iTunes reviews.
What?
Wah, wah, wah. That's all right.
Must have been all the cursing.
Must have been. Although we did get lots of comments. I'm not going to read them all, but we did get lots of feedback off this past show. But hey, listen. Overall, if you guys would like to rate and review us, even if you wouldn't like to, I'd ask for you to do it anyway, because it helps the show. It really does. As people are looking for Buccaneers content, they have a lot of things that they can choose from, and this just helps us bubble to the top. It also, it lets other people know that you think that this is a good show and that this would be one that they should invest their time into listening to, especially as we're putting out a lot of content. We fill a lot of hours for the week. So, it just helps people to say, hey, this is a show I should check out. So you can do that. Go into iTunes, leave us a review, or whatever podcasting platform you would like to. The only one that I'm really aware of and that I know how to do is the iTunes review. So that's the one that we always look at. And that's kind of the one where it matters most, just the way their algorithms work. So you guys go over there and do that. We will make sure that we read those on the show as we see them come across. And those are always fun to get to interact with just a little bit. An update from last week's iTunes review, Ren.
Oh, an update. All right.
Yes. Well, it came from Newbie Daddy 2006.
Oh, that's right.
And we debated the name of Newbie Daddy, and turns out I was completely wrong, and you were absolutely right. It was it's just an old name, as you. So
for the course.
we are now taking applications for a new co-host for the Pewtercast.
Brent,
no, I'm
like
just joking. Just joking. But yeah, so it turns out it's just an old name for him. He was a Newbie Daddy in 2006. He has an 11-year-old now.
Was Twitter around in 2006?
Well, here's what I know. Our friend Derek Fournier in his podcast, What the Buc, has been around longer than Twitter.
Been around longer than smartphones.
His show is older than iPhones. I did a whole list of stuff that his show was older than the other day, and I couldn't believe it. Or a while back, I couldn't believe it. It was quite phenomenal. We're not talking about
crude oil, Mickey Mouse.
False. That is fake news.
Steam powered engines.
Up
our mustaches. Sorry.
God, dirt. Let's see here. So iTunes reviews. So yeah, there's that. Shout out to Newbie Daddy. That was fun. He helped clarify that. He's like, thanks for not letting me be the creepy guy.
You're welcome.
That's what made that jump out to me was he said that. We got
to be the creepy guy, even though it's getting harder and harder every day.
It is true. We did get a new comment over on the Podbean app over there. They left a comment for our show. They said we had a particularly awesome InstantCast this last week, so that was fun. Leaving that on the show notes over there. So thank you to whomever that was. I didn't see the name. They got popped up for that. So we have that one to go on then. And then after that, Ren, we have on Twitter, our friend Chris over on Twitter just says, hey, Pewtercast, just caught the InstantCast, and that caller, Roberto, made a lot of good points. Wink, wink.
Nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
Our
I was going to ask
mysterious caller.
I was going to ask if that was Chris from Alaska or Chris from Texas, but apparently it's Chris from Orlando.
Chris from Orlando, yeah. Chris from Orlando really liked that last that one caller we had on the InstantCast.
Roberto from Tallahassee.
Yeah, Mr. Incognito. They really liked him there.
Wow. Interesting. It's that's like when I like my own posts on Facebook. I do that a lot. Like I'll comment on something, which I used to, because like I said, Facebook is dead. I rarely go on Facebook. I used to comment, and then I'd like my own comment because I thought it was hilarious.
Ren's sitting there like, sheesh, I cracked myself up.
That was good. Like, upvote. Upvote, Orville. Upvote.
He says upvote. All right. Let's hear it. Moving on from that. Let's hear a couple of notes we got in here. Our friend Kevin wrote into us. Kevin Sloan. Shout out to Kevin. Big fan of the show. Big friend of the show. Really? He says, sorry, guys, I didn't get to air out my frustration over yesterday's game, but I damn sure made it known in the chat room. And yes, he did. Apparently, you go to mixler.com/thepewtercast. Check out the chat room. Go up and see exactly what Kevin said there. But here's what he says. He says, that game totally pissed me off, and I'm still down for a president of football ops to help oversee this team. No more Glazers hands-on. A few names are out there, Dungy, Gruden, or Shelton Quarles. Ren, what do you think about that? President of football operations. Basically what Tom Coughlin is doing up in Jacksonville.
Right. Yeah. I don't think it's a terrible idea. Be honest, I'd have to look into it more and see exactly what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Because president of football operations isn't that like the GM? I mean, it's just like in my opinion, listening to that title, it just sounds like you're just giving the GM a different name,
right?
A different title. But in Jacksonville, they have a GM and they have, the president of football operations, Tom Coughlin. Now, like I said, is it someone who makes these decisions to fire people instead of the owners, and who to hire? Do the search for the hire. Is that what that person's for? If that's what that person's for, then yeah.
Yeah. My understanding of it is basically when they don't do anything from a business standpoint, but as far as football is concerned, they're kind of like the GM's boss. Like they oversee the GM search, and they work with the GM on a coaching search, and they are kind of the guy who holds accountable the GM for everything. Who holds the GM accountable for everything. That's my understanding, but I could be way off base. I will say this. I know that there are, like, Shelton Quarles with the team right now is is he the director of football operations? I think that might actually be his title. I'm going to look that up real quick.
He seems to be the logistics guy.
Yeah, the thing was, I remember looking up what he actually did, and basically what I discovered was each team, like most teams have this position title, but each team has like a different job description for what the team for what it is.
Right.
So he is the director of football operations. That's what Shelton Quarles is. Now, the closest thing that I could find to what that does, like what it seems to be the most for the vast majority of teams, is basically they oversee
Kevin. We have one.
Right. They oversee the scouting department. Is a lot of what they actually do. So they oversee all the scouts. They do all the everything leading into the draft. Like basically, it's Jason Light's arm as far as that go. But as we also saw in Hard Knocks, Shelton Quarles is also the guy. Like he's the guy who makes the phone call to the guys and says, bring your playbook. Coach needs to see you. You don't like this phone call. Like I'm not the good guy to get a phone call from. So apparently he's involved with
that. He said that like every time. How you doing? Good. Well, it's not good news you're hearing from me. Yeah, I know.
Right.
He started every conversation like that.
Yeah.
It's not good news you're hearing from me.
Right. So, but he also, he also sat back and he would say to them, hey, listen, we're going to cut you, but we want to re-sign you. Like he would drop the axe, but he would also be the guy who would kind of tell them what the next step is before they went in and talked to the coach sometimes as well. So, so what does he actually do? I'm not really sure. This is not something they really put out there in detail out for us, but that seems to be the general consensus of what a director of football operations does. So what would a president of football operations do? I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
so I'm interested in it. He sent the message I sent back to him was like, I think that warrants conversation. I think I'd have to know what this does more before we're ready to hand that over, because I think you bring up a very good point. What's the difference between that and a GM, or between that and a head coach? Like, why have a head coach why have the head coach you have if you're just going to bring in another head coach to be on top of him and coach him? Like, tell him what to do. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Hey, fans, write in. Let us know what you think about that. Listen, and here's the thing. He dropped Dungy in there. I love the idea of Dungy coming back. He put in Quarles in there because certainly Sheldon could get promoted into doing something like that. I don't know what the position would entail, so maybe Quarles would be great for it. Maybe not. Gruden seems to be an interesting case. The only thing that you have to remember with all of this is the person that you would like to bring in also has to agree to come in, right? Yeah. So is Gruden? Gruden to me, it seems like he wants to coach. He doesn't want to do this other stuff. I think he just wants to coach. So
I don't want Gruden as my president of football operations. I don't think he has a temperament for it.
I don't disagree with you there. I don't think
Shelton Quarles has enough experience. It seems to be someone. It's basically, this is what it seems to be. It's someone who's been in the game a long time. Okay, has a very good football mind, but they don't want to put in the hours anymore of a head coach or a GM. It's like a permanent consultant.
Right.
I'll lay down the framework of where we want to go and how we're going to do it, and you guys, head coach, GM, scouting department, defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, you guys execute it. So that's sort of what it seems to be. That's why I just don't think Shelton Quarles would be sort of the right person for that.
Guy for that.
Yeah.
Dungy seems interesting though for something like that.
Dungy does seem interesting. Now, I'm I don't know. I did, for all that he did for the Buccaneers, I'll be eternally grateful. But I sort of did fall in the camp where he was almost too loyal or too much of a nice guy, or if you weren't like, and this, I may be overstating, but you had to be the right type of person for him to be on your team. If you were sort of a Aqib Talib type, you weren't going to last long as a Buccaneer with Tony Dungy in charge. Austin Seferian-Jenkins probably wouldn't have gotten many chances. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But these guys can turn it around, or you don't want a bunch of choir boys on your team. Like I said, I might be overstating it, but with Tony Dungy being sort of in that role, to me, I would feel like as a fan that the cone of players that he looks at would be much more narrow than someone like a Tom Coughlin. So, of the three, I like Tony the best. I just as a fan, I would probably look elsewhere.
Warren Sapp.
No, not a chance.
Derek Brooks.
No.
Rondé Barber.
No. Derek Brooks would probably be the closest.
Keyshawn Johnson.
It doesn't have to be an ex-Buccaneer, first off.
No, you're right. It doesn't.
But Derek Brooks would have to be the closest because he is president of operations. He's basically the GM of the Tampa Bay Storm and has been for quite a few years. He wanted to get, or he does want to get into front office work in the NFL, and this was his step his ways to do it. Like he was, taking the proper steps, sort of being like, hey, I want to manage in the big leagues. Okay, well, you got to manage our, independent league team. And then you move up to, rookie ball, and then you move up to single A, and, that type of deal. So Derek started on the ground floor. That was a little bit of the talk when John Lynch came out of nowhere, coming from, the booth on Fox on, he was like, what, team 3, team 4 for Fox, as analysis or a color guy, I should say. And now he's head, GM of the 49ers. People are like, whoa. It's like, that's not how you're supposed to do it. But, yeah, gave a good interview, I guess.
There you go. I'd be interested to see that. All right, moving on with that. We've got an email in. This is Chris from Alaska. And he says this. He says, I will start with defense this week. He says, first off, if you can hold a team to 17 points, the Panthers, 19 points, the Patriots, you should win those games. The secondary played better than any of us expected. VH3 and Ryan Smith held their own this week. No sacks again this week. I felt the defense contained Cam and hit the Panthers offense really well. Mike Smith adjusted well in the first half, and he would grade this unit an A-.
Like you're thinking.
Yes, my grading is a little bit different, but I think everything you said, you and I were talking about it kind of during the break a little bit. VH3 had a pretty decent game. The cornerbacks had a pretty decent game. Like, not bad. And I said the same thing. You limit a team to 17, 19 points. That's a reasonable thing to ask your defense to do. So, at least in my opinion. But he goes on. He says, the offense, now let's talk about them. Non-existent for the most part. When drives were going, the penalties were drive killers. Jameis will be Jameis, and he's trying to make plays, and the fumble can't happen. The interceptions can't happen. He overthrows a wide-open Mike Evans. Doug Martin fought for every one of his yards, no thanks to the offensive line. Donovan Smith needs to play better. I just don't get how both units, offense and defense, can't play together. They just can't. One week the offense picks up in the slack, and the next week it's the complete opposite. Too many inconsistencies right now. This wasn't a play calling issue, it was execution. Let's see here. Look, at the end of the day, the coaches coach and the players play. Dirk isn't the one throwing the ball. He isn't the one dropping passes. He isn't the one holding defensive linemen. He says he's heard Cutter's leadership is failing, and that's not the case, is what he says. He has heard that it is failing, but it's not the case. The players are failing Dirk Cutter. Overall, I grade this offense an F because they only scored 3 points, which is underwhelming. They got in the red zone for one play in all of 60 minutes, and that just can't happen. There is too much talent on offense.
Yeah, can't disagree with anything he said. He's doing his own little game grades here. Did he do special teams?
He did. He said special teams. I will go back. Just one thing. He said the fumble can't happen. The interceptions can't happen. Except to say that they are going to happen. I just don't think the fumble can happen in the way that it did happen in this game. Like, that's what's worse about it, is not the fact that it did happen, because it will happen. Balls are going to get punched out.
Strip sack.
Yeah, strip sack. Those kinds of things are going to happen. The way this one happened, where he was taking a sack. Now, here's the thing. I'm not sure if that particular play, if Jameis was already, if he was already in the midst of starting his throw, and he really just didn't see or feel the guy until he was behind him, and the throw just got thrown sideways. What it looked to me like in the moment, though, was it was one of those, he was trying to save the sack and just made a real stupid pitch out of it.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
So, that's what he got yelled at for in Jacksonville in the preseason, is doing stupid stuff like that. And, that's the thing that can't happen. But interceptions will happen in this game. They just don't need to happen in a large number. Fumbles will happen. They just don't need to happen in a large number. I'm not gonna cry every time one happens. It just, Not that much better. Special teams, though. You asked about that. Special teams, he says, Pat Murray connected on his lone field goal attempt. Anger pinned Carolina inside the 20 twice. I think he pinned them inside the 10 twice, actually, didn't he?
Don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. He says, I think it was. I think I'm right on that. Might be wrong. He says the unit gets an A. The whole team for him grades out to be a C. He thinks this team will win 5 more games this season, finishing 7-9. What do you think about that, Ren? Here we are, almost to the halfway point of the season. If you had to look in your crystal ball, where do you think we finish? I know you and I both said, 11-5 in our way too early thing when they released the schedule.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I held 11-5 all the way through the start of the season. I held 11-5 up to about 2 weeks ago.
Well, I guess technically still hold on to it.
I still could, but I'm not.
Are we 2-4? No, 2-5. Are we 2-5?
We're 2-5. Yeah, right now 2-5.
All right. Well, yep. Probably not going to see that 11-5.
Yeah.
I just feel like the team's going to play better. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's something like the pressure's off now, and the playoffs are out of reach, and now the national spotlight's on us, or maybe Jameis settles down, because he felt all this pressure because of Hard Knocks and Good Morning Football and all that stuff. So I still think we go on a streak, and we get to play the Jets, who have won some games, but now you're seeing that they're starting to lose some games. The Jets are kind of like us. As far as you would playing somebody, like, yeah, they could win this game, but they're probably not. And that's where I think sort of we are. So I think we beat the Jets. I think we beat the Dolphins. They just got rid of Jay Ajayi. The Packers don't have Aaron Rodgers. We might be able to beat the Packers. I wouldn't put it past us. And then we got the Lions, who are up and down. They're gonna move the ball and they're gonna put points on the board, but their defense really can't stop anybody either. So it's going to be like a New England game where first one to 20 wins. And then the rest are just division games. We got 5 division games left. So yeah, maybe. 7-9 would probably be safest. 9-7's possible.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you. How about this? I will tell you what their final record is after this Saints game.
You want to get to the actual halfway mark and then see?
Well, it's not really the halfway mark. I just want to see them play the Saints.
Okay,
is what it is. I want to see them play the Saints. The Saints are flying high. They won 5 in a row. They've got this, defense that puts a lot of pressure, sort of like Carolina. You think Drew Brees is going to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he really hasn't done it that often this year. They're scrapping for points near the end. In a lot of their games. Some games they have, Drew Brees has done Drew Brees stuff. So, we felt like as fan base that this Carolina game was it. Like, this was it. They're going to come out. They're going to come out hot, and everyone's going to play like it's their last game they've ever played their whole entire life, because this is it. If they lose this game, season's basically over. Well, if they lose the Saints game, as far as getting the playoffs, it is over. You can't. That'll put the Saints at like 6-2, and you're not going to catch them, and you're not going to get a wild card. Mm-hmm. You're just not. So you got to win the division at this point. So if they lose the Saints, this is it, and I think the players know it. And I think they were mad about the Buffalo game, and I think we're embarrassed. I think the defense is embarrassed the Buffalo game, and now the offense is embarrassed from the Panthers game. If they don't put it together this week, and I mean like win by like 14 points. I don't mean like squeak out a field goal. They need to go and put a whooping on the Saints in the Superdome. And if they don't, I don't know. I know I'm sort of babbling. Once we play the Saints, I will tell you if we're going 6-10, 7-9, 8-8, 9-7, maybe 10-6. But I seriously doubt it. But we'll see.
We'll see. All right. Well, thank you, Chris. Appreciate your email.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Chris from Anchorage.
Anchorage. There you go. Alaska.
Yeah.
Alaska.
Yeah, which is not bigger than the lower 48, by the way.
It is not. It is. Oh crap! Oh, I looked it up the other day just to see. It's bigger than like Texas, California, and some other state like Montana. Yeah, it's bigger than those 3 states all combined. But not bigger than half the lower 48. You're right. It's 1/5. That's what it was. It was 1/5 the lower 48. That's how big it is. So, anyway, moving on. This comes from Andrew, and the subject says thoughts from a UK fan, which made me super happy. I'm a UK guy. Go Cats, University of Kentucky. Turns out it's the other UK, as in the United Kingdom, which I think probably most other people in the listening world think of when they hear UK. So, but here's what he says. He says, "Hi guys, I've been listening to the podcast since just before the season started during training camp and love the various shows you do throughout the week. Hey, that's why we're changing the name of this show. And even though it's been a grim start to the season, it has been a general comfort to hear your thoughts." Oh, thanks, Andrew. Appreciate that.
What are you, 12-year-old girl?
Oh.
Did you get a kitty cat emoji?
It gives me the warm feels. It gives me the warm fuzzies.
You got kids, so I'll give it to you.
It's true. Andrew continues. He says, "I've been a Bucs fan in the UK since 2006. The first season we had was when we had Bruce Gradkowski at quarterback." Oh, it's been a long time since I've said that name. Right. He said, "So apart from the following season in 2007, it's been a generally disappointing season after disappointing season. Yep. And I know we've had a few winning seasons here and there, but generally just disappointment." That's a hard time to become a Bucs fan and stay through. Kudos to you for staying through, because that's a rough thing. He says he's never given.
In the UK, you could just sort of like pick and choose.
Right. It's not exactly the hometown, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
hometown, home state, home country.
Right. So he goes on. He says, "I've never given up on the Bucs." He says, "They were picked by my brother who went on a holiday in America, and that means vacation." That's what he says. That's what he says in his email. That's not me being an asshole. That's what he says.
He's being an asshole. Got it. Not you.
No, he's not being an asshole. He is helping translate his words for us. He says he went on a holiday in the Sunshine State and brought me back a T-shirt, and I've never looked back. Okay, nice. That's kind of a cool way to become a fan. Just somebody brings you a T-shirt and you say, "This is my team from now on." Disappointing season after disappointing season, I don't care. I've got the T-shirt. I'm a fan of this team. That's kind of neat.
I wonder what kind of T-shirt it was.
I don't know. I wonder if he's got new T-shirts since then. Like, does he still just have the one, or like, has he got more gear? I don't know. We should send him a PewterCast shirt.
We don't have PewterCast shirts,
but we can, because you know why? We have an excellent logo that came out this last summer, which is amazing. Thank you, Johnny Sang.
Yeah, Johnny Sang.
He was awesome. Does not listen to the show. He's not a Bucs fan.
Is he?
But he's a good guy.
Fan?
No, he's not. He's a basketball fan.
Like a football
fan.
No,
he's not.
I'm graphic designer Johnny Sang. Yeah, he probably drinks like $22 coffees.
He might. He might. He's right here. Anyway, Andrew, though, not Johnny. Andrew continues. He says, "The disappointment feels so much worse so far this season. From the preseason team that we have built, I'm sure that I'm not the only one who's confused in what has changed. Is Cutter the sort of head coach to start slow, but then when his back is against the wall to do really well?" He says, "I do really like Dirk and I want him to stay, but say we have another season like this one, and when say we have another season like the last one and win the last 6 games but still miss out. Is that another failure?" All right, Ren, what do you think?
It's a knee-jerk reaction. I want to say yes, but I don't know. You know, I'd have to wait till the end, because it all depends on how we're winning the games. Like, if the offense comes together and we're scoring points like the Rams, and the defense comes together, like I guess maybe the Rams. Wherever Wade Phillips goes, that guy is like the best defense coordinator of all time. He built Houston's defense and he leaves, and now they're terrible. He built Denver's defense, he leaves, and they're not nearly as good as they were. They're not terrible, but I bet they will be next year. Anyway, so yeah, it depends on how they win. If they're beating people by like 10 points, 14 points, and the defense is really shutting people down, where it's a real pain in the butt to come play the Buccaneers offensively. And, the offense is putting up, like 22, 24, 26 a game, then it's not a failure. It just took them a little while to figure out, and here we go. Let's roll. But if it ends up like last year, where the defense basically kept us above water in 13 to 15 games, and they had to get, 3 turnovers a game, and, one of them had to be returned for a touchdown or had to be picked off in the end zone to save the game, then I think it would be a failure in the fans' minds, at least.
Yeah, I on the one hand, you could say what the team says, which is, listen, if you don't go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl, then your season was a failure. You failed to achieve your goal, and the goal every year is the Super Bowl, right? So, regardless if you go 6-10 or 10-6, if you miss out on the playoffs, if you miss out on the Super Bowl, even if you get in the playoffs, you miss out on the Super Bowl, it's still a failure because you didn't make your goal. So there's that aspect where you could say, well, it's possible that it'd be another failure anyway. But as far as the fans go, Ren, kind of like you were alluding to, I would feel like the fans would say at this point, we said this at the beginning of the year. We said this through the offseason. It's playoffs or bust. If you make the playoffs, great. If you don't make the playoffs, then that's a failure for the year. Like the Bucs fans this year wanted to see playoffs. So there's that aspect of it. I am more on a different side, and I was kind of like that too. I got to be honest. I was like that this past offseason, and I'm not backtracking for whatever. It's just I think when you go through what we've been through the last 4 weeks and through the last 7 weeks really for this team, it may throw some things of what you said into relief, and you get a chance to examine where you really are on it. And I personally believe this. To say that last year was a success, this year is going to be a failure if we don't hit the playoffs next year, whatever. Like, you have to start defining what is success and what is failure. And to me, it's you have to trend up, right? Like, if you're trending down, that's bad. Mm-hmm. If you're trending, level sideways, that's not great. It's not the end of the world. Does it keep you your job? Maybe not. You want to ultimately see the team trending up. And 2 years, like taking last year and this year, does not give you enough points of data to realize what a trend is. Does that make sense? Like and this is why I go back to say we have to give Cutter, with very, very few exceptions, the full run of his contract, because it's only in having that full set of data that you can pick out a trend line. Because let's say they went 9-7 last season. Even if you want to give them a boost from the season before where they were 6-10, so that's a sharp upswing that we all felt last year. And then let's say they go 7-9 this year, or let's say they go 6-10 again this year. Well, that's going to be a dip. But what happens if next year we go 11-5? And then what if the next year, and then what if the next year after that's 10-6? Well, that, over that 4-year run, we've kind of up and down, but we've trended up and to the right, if that makes sense. Right. So yes. I feel like you've got to have more data points than just 2 years before you can really qualify success or failure for a head coach.
Yeah, I feel you.
All right. He continues. He says, with Jameis, as you know, you love his desire, you love his passion, you want him to do well, and you can see little things
the little things there that he will get to a Super Bowl, but this is his third year. Do you guys think he should be further at this moment in time? Is the current coaching holding him back?
No. How much further do you want him to be? I mean, the only thing that's holding Jameis back is Jameis.
Yeah.
Now he's hurt, but the only thing he really has to quit doing has to absolutely quit doing. Now, that was a bad ball to Cameron Brate. That was picked off by Kuechly. It was. What was the other interception?
Yeah, I don't remember. Wasn't it like a garbage time one, like they're at the very end or something? I don't remember.
That was the Kuechly interception.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't
anyway,
remember. Yeah. But
he has to quit doing that stuff where he's getting sacked and he's trying to shovel it out to Doug Martin to save 3 yards. That's the stuff he has to quit. I mean, who's the hottest quarterback in the NFL right now?
Right now?
Yeah. Like, who's the best quarterback in the
NFL? Is it Tom Brady? I mean, do you have to stay there?
That's fair. That's fair.
I mean, I would say Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers is hurt right now. So
right. Yeah.
But it's going to be one of those two guys in my mind all the time.
Okay. What about Alex Smith from the Chiefs?
I would not say that he's the best quarterback in the NFL. Probably top 10, sure.
He's leading all the statistically. He's doing the best.
Is he really?
His team's 6-2.
Wow.
I believe.
Drew Brees. What about Drew Brees?
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, everyone called Alex Smith a game manager and thought he would never get any better, and then all of a sudden he gets some weapons around him. Like a Hunt. He's got probably the best tight end in the league, in my opinion, because Gronk just can't stay healthy, and he's sort of a shadow of his former self, even though it's a very light shadow or dark shadow, whichever one's closer to being your former self. I guess darkest, because it's more solid. Who knows? And he doesn't really, he doesn't have any of these outstanding wide receivers, but he's got one that's really speedy, and he's got a head coach that puts these guys in the best position to display their talents. So now all of a sudden Alex Smith went into this, got benched for Colin Kaepernick, then eventually got traded to Kansas City, can't throw the ball down the field, can't throw a touchdown pass to his wide receivers, can't win a playoff game, and now he's getting MVP talk. Well, why is that? I mean, because and it's like his 9th season.
12th. This is his 12th season.
12th season, and he's having like his best year yet. So it's only like Jameis hasn't even played 50 games yet. I mean, it's not even close to 50 games. So I would argue, I guess who's playing better than Jameis Winston of all the young quarterbacks? You got Carlos Wentz, maybe Dak Prescott. Mariota's numbers have fallen off a cliff this year. Derek Carr is throwing. They lost 4 in a row, beat the Chiefs, and they've lost another one.
Derek Carr's up and down. He's a horrible fantasy guy because sure enough, the week you sit him, he's going to rack up 40 points for you. But you play him the next week and he's getting 12. Don't ask me how I know from experience.
I've seen good things. So. And I also don't think his development is being hindered because, it's not. I think he's exactly where he needs to be. I just really do. You have to get out of your head look at Carlos Wentz, look how great he's doing. Well, yeah, and Carlos Wentz got a lot of talent around him on both sides of the ball. But you're not always going to have the best guy at every position. You're just not, and everybody develops differently. You want to talk about Dirk Cutter as a head coach and play calling, and is he slowing down the development of Jameis Winston? Well, look at all the head coaches that have come around like the past 2 years. Like you got Kyle Shanahan, who was hotter than the sun as a head coach. The Atlanta Falcons offensive coordinator, he's in San Francisco, winless. McVay from the Rams, you caught lightning in a bottle with that guy. He also has, in my personal opinion, the best defensive coordinator in the game for like the past 10, 15 years, coaching the other side of the ball. You got Doug McDermott up in Buffalo who's doing really well, but he's winning with defense. If you put 25 points on him, you probably could win that game. Now it's hard to do, but it's built for it's a playoff. It's a team that's built for the playoffs, but they're not built for inside. At Dallas for the Super Bowl. Like that offense is not going to get it done in a Super Bowl. I'm sorry, it's just not. Who else you got? They got the guy from Denver who just took over like a year or two ago. He's struggling. The guy from Cleveland who's supposed to be his quarterback guru. They've already benched Kaiser once. He's struggling. So
and they just tried to trade for somebody else to bench him again, and they screwed it up.
Yeah, was that true?
Yeah, that's true.
They forgot to turn it into the office, like they were celebrating their pick.
Yeah. So for people out there who may not have heard, the Cleveland Browns agreed to trade A.J. McCarron from the Bengals, which effectively would put Kaiser back on the bench. And the trade got done at 3:55. The deadline was 4:00, and the front office was so excited. They were celebrating. Cincinnati called the NFL office and said, hey, here's the trade. It's approved. Cleveland never called the NFL office until after 4:00 to tell them that the trade was approved, and the NFL said, sorry, deadline's passed. Screwed it up. It's true.
So Cleveland. So I mean, how would you like to have those head coaches? So, yes, you would like to catch lightning in the bottle like Sean McVay is doing, with the Rams. Yes, you would like to catch lightning in a bottle that appears as of now that Carson Wentz is. But besides those guys, who's better than Cutter? Who is?
Right. And what happens? I mean, okay, so take Carson Wentz. Okay, take any of these other first or second year quarterbacks. Let's see what happens in their next year. These guys all go through different development pieces, right? And
it'll be really interesting to see what Dak Prescott does without Ezekiel Elliott.
Exactly. And, so you just got to give time. And as you pointed out, Alex Smith being talked about for MVP, this is his 12th year. Listen, I agree with you. I think Jameis is doing fine in his development. And there's the thing. You want to compare everybody's different development to each other, but you can't do that. That's not fair. Each person is an individual, right?
All the coaches are different. All the players around him are different.
Exactly.
All the teams are different.
Exactly. So you have to be able to allow Jameis to develop. He's going to be around for a really long time, guys. If he takes a couple extra years to develop, maybe he gets some of the bad years under his belt now so we can have string more good years together later. That's fine. I have no problems with that. And I'm not saying that I want it to take 12 years for Jameis to develop into an MVP type quarterback. I don't think it would take him that long. But I think he's developing just fine. I really do. He's learning the game. He's making better decisions. We see him in the spot where he's aware of the stupid decisions that he's making in the moment when he's making them. That's progress, and that's just a part of the process. I think he's getting better. Do I think coaching is holding him back? No, I don't think coaching is holding him back. Could he do better with different coaching from a position coach? Potentially, but Ren, as you've pointed out, we can have a quarterbacks coach, but it's still Dirk Cutter. So, and Dirk Cutter and as we just said, he's doing fine in developing him. So, no, I don't think it's holding him back. As the only thing holding Jameis back, as you said, is just Jameis, and it's just his own development. And I'm okay with where he is right now. I just want to make sure that he gets that shoulder healthy so that he can be around for the next 12, 15 years, and not have a situation like we're seeing going on in Indianapolis right now. So he finishes up his email. He says, sorry for the long email. He'll try to call the Pewtercast after a game this season for an InstantCast, but the 1 p.m. game usually finishes around 9:00 his time, which means we aren't getting getting started with the InstantCast until, what is that, about 1:00 in the morning his time. But he says he'll try to get on and ring us up. Keep up the amazing work you do. Andy from the UK, Yorkshire specifically.
Yorkshire.
Did I pronounce it? Yeah, Andy, is it Yorkshire or Yorkshire? I feel like it's Yorkshire.
I think they say Yorkshire, and we say Yorkshire. You know that in England they call Worcestershire they call it Worcester because it's named after a town.
Worcestershire.
And
interesting.
No, the town's Worcester.
Worcester. Okay.
And Shire over there is sort of like, from our Tolkien, it means like town or village or city. So it's like saying St. Petersburg. It's like if there was a condiment named after, Tampa, it'd be like saying Tampa Bay City when you say Worcestershire.
Interesting.
So they say Worcester.
My grandfather always just said, they came up with the name because people would put it on their steak and they'd hold it up and they'd go, "Hey, Worcestershire sauce." Worcestershire. What's it? Anyway.
Kentucky, right?
Yes, we are from Kentucky. We have lame jokes like that. Hey, listen, we were talking about the Cleveland Browns a minute ago. You mentioned J.J. I think this might be a good time, Ren. Let's go ahead and drop over and check in on this week's poll.
It's real bad. Okay? I don't like those numbers at all.
Just one poll? Those things aren't scientific.
Yes, they are. All this is science. This is math.
All right, for this week's poll, we asked which trade made by another team would you have liked to see the Bucs make? As we record this, today was the deadline for trading for the 20,000 or the 2017 season.
20,000. Get in my flying car.
Let's go. Buddy, we were supposed to have flying cars 2 years ago. What the heck?
According to who? Hollywood?
According to, Michael J. Fox, baby. And Doc Brown. All right. Which trade made by another team today would you have liked to see the Bucs make? The choices we threw out there, we only had 4 of them because, Twitter has a limit. We said running back J.I.J. or Ajay. Quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo going over to the 49ers. We had cornerback Rashard Robinson. And left tackle Dwayne Brown. Ren, before we talk about this was actually a really close poll. What did you think about this one?
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. If all these people about bench Jameis and he's a bust that you sort of see on Twitter, those are the people who are going to vote for Garoppolo. Donovan Smith did not have his best game last week, probably his worst game. So, the left tackle might get some play.
Though, to be fair with that, though, this is far from Donovan Smith's worst season so far.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I thought he was playing, I give him a B,
Yeah.
I think he's been called for some phantom penalties.
I agree.
But, and your left tackle is going to get beat. Like, he just is, that the reason Joe Thomas is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer is because you couldn't beat him. But everybody, there's just everybody else you beat. You're going to get beat. You're going to give up some sacks. No, he's not the best left tackle in the game. He may never be the best left tackle in the game, but find me a better one. That's, as we always say, replace him with whom? Because teams aren't going to get rid of their all-pro left tackles. So, since Donovan did have a bad game, and he's sort of been on and off the guillotine queue for 2 seasons now, that'll be interesting. We've been talking about cornerbacks and Vernon. No one's gotten more crap from the fans this year than Vernon. So, what was the other one? Running back? Yeah, I mean,
J.J.
Joe Bucs fan voted for J.J. that. Talking about how they don't hate Martin, but then talk about how much he sucks. Like, use those words. Oh, we don't hate him. He sucks. He's the worst. Yeah, they're still talking about it. They won't let it, dude. They will not let it go, man. They had an article. They put an article up about trading for Kendrick West, the third down back from Kansas City. So basically, they wanted Charles Sims. But what they did is they looked at his yards per carry. Like, they had no idea what kind of back he was. They just go, oh, look at this guy, Kansas City. He's got some good yard per average. And he's not going to get in front of Kareem Hunt since, he's the bee's knees of the NFL right now. Let's trade for him. Basically, they're saying, hey, let's trade for Charles Sims. It's like, okay, guys, you just hate Doug Martin that much. Well, they don't. They don't hate him, but they don't think he should be on the team. Anyway, there's my rant. What I think, I would vote. I would take corner. Brent's injured now. They did play well, but you can never have too many corners, and I still live by that.
Certainly seems like a thin position right now, doesn't it?
Yeah, and if I had my pick, it's definitely an inexperienced position.
Mm-hmm.
I would be surprised if Grimes only plays like 2 or 3 more times this year. He might have hung it up.
Yeah,
like he'll play like 2 games. Shoulders hurt, sit out 2 games, come back for a game or 2. It just might be that. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to call his professionalism into question, but
for whatever it's worth, Miko, second half of Team Grimes, did send out a tweet earlier this week saying that we, meaning her and Brent, love it in Tampa. They love being in Tampa. They love playing in Tampa. So that's not going to help them much on the injury front, but at least hopefully that should help with the want to of coming back.
I don't think he's coming back.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think he's coming back after the season for sure. It's just a matter of how soon this season does he get back.
Oh, so. Gotcha.
But so yeah, anyway, no, I think he's retiring. So, but you're going with cornerback?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, 31% of our respondents out there would agree with you. The cornerback, Rashard Robinson. Like you, Ren, I don't really know a whole lot about this guy. It's not a name that I've heard out there. The position certainly becomes the big thing about that. 27% of the people went with the running back position at Jay Ajayi. And the big winner of this particular poll was left tackle, Dwayne Brown, 37%, but still really close, 37, 31, 27%. Really close. The one that was way far out there, which, Ren, if this tells you anything about the people who keep talking about benching Jameis, it was only 5%, which is like 2 votes in this particular poll right now. So, and that might be the same person who just got on from 2 different accounts.
Could be. Well, that's good. And also, I just don't get the J.J. vote. Like, look at J.J.'s numbers.
Yeah.
He's not,
Yeah, I looked his numbers up, and it was not encouraging. I don't know what.
Sorry, he had a very good year last year. Had a couple 200-yard games, but they just can't get him going this year. So
yeah,
it's if you don't like Doug Martin as your running back, you're basically bringing in Doug Martin, a power back who they just can't get on track. He can't get started. So.
Yeah, and I don't know what the running back situation is exactly right now in Philadelphia, and why he may or may not be a good fit up there. I don't know, but it's just not a thing that we need. I keep hearing a lot of people on social media right now are asking, why didn't we make any trades? Why didn't we make any trades? And I'll go back and reiterate, and it's what I'm going to say to everybody out there. If I'm putting down an answer, is talent's not our issue. We have the talent that we need on this team, even with the lack of depth at cornerback right now, and even with defensive end, we have so much talent in other places that the lack should make up for it, right? Like, you're not going to have superstars at every single position,
right? But
where you do have your superstars, they should make up for where you lack, and we have enough superstars around this team, both sides of the ball. It's not talent right now; it just seems to be execution mostly. You could maybe make an argument for scheme. So anyway, I want to say thank you to everybody who voted in this week's poll. And as we record this, turns out there's still some time left in the poll, so these numbers could change. But if you haven't voted yet, go check it out. See if it's there. We're on Twitter at the PewterCast. Quarterback, yeah. Pump up Jimmy Garoppolo.
Quarter.
Oh, cornerback. Corner. I wish those 2 words didn't sound so similar. Well, we've got one more email, and it comes from our good buddy Chef Aaron, always faithful to send something in. And here's what Aaron says. He says, quick summary. The defense showed up, mainly the secondary and the linebackers. Pass rush was non-existent as always. He says, I'm going to go out on a limb and say no one is okay that the D-line registered 5 sacks. Sorry. I think he's missing a couple words here. It's okay. He was rushing to get this in.
From your iPhone.
Yeah. He says, this D-line is so deplorable, it's truly embarrassing, the legacy of Sapp and Rice. Jason Light, if he stays on, must address this in the offseason, as well as make the first pick next year a pass rusher. Let's talk about that for a second.
Okay.
Is the defensive line, specifically defensive end, our number one position of need that Light needs to look at addressing in the offseason right now?
You'd be hard pressed not to. I mean, you really would. Like, it is miserable. So I'm not going to go as far. It needs to be the first position in the draft because I don't know where we're drafting, and I know what we're going to do in free agency. Like, I haven't even started looking at defensive line free agents. I think we're going to do sort of what Jason Light does. Is he's going to have to, sort of like how he broke the bank with Deshaun Jackson. He's going to have to break the bank and get whoever the top dog is, make a serious play for him, and then we're going to have to draft another one.
Draft a stud.
But it all depends sort of how it stacks up this year. It might be a year where we're heavy on edge rushers, and you could pick one up that you really like in the second or third round. Maybe trade up in the second or third round, to go get a guy. So I'm not going to say it needs to be the first, but right now, without knowing the draft position or even really looking at who's coming out, I do think it's the biggest position of need.
Yeah, I would agree. I would also it's early to start to already be talking about it, but there are some things that we know coming up. Like Robert Ayers' contract is over at the end of this year, and whether he moves on to another team, whether he retires, or whether we re-sign him and get him here for another year. Let's face it, Robert Ayers isn't exactly lighting up the sack board out there. So I do agree we are going to have to do something. I'm sure Jason knows that. Apparently there was some talks about them being there were some rumors about them being in talks on a couple of guys for the trade. They just couldn't come to an agreement on the price. So he agrees. Is it the first pick? Preferably, I think so. But if you get, we talked about it this year, right? Like the Bucs were not looking to draft a tight end.
Yeah.
In their first round. It's just O.J. Howard drops. So, if an O.J. Howard type player at a different position drops to you, you kind of have to take them. I mean, at some point, it's just best player available. But it's just hard. You got to wait to see how it shakes out. But I think the plan should be potentially going forward with a defensive end, depending on who's going to be available. I think that's a good starting strategy for him. But he goes on to say, he says, Light also needs to stop relying on players coming off injuries to make an impact. It's bit him in the ass twice now. Last year with wide receiver, which arguably cost this team a playoff spot. I believe he's talking about Vincent Jackson from last year. He says this year his negligence on pass rush has made this defensive line an absolute joke. He says, I love Light and I want him to get an extension, but this is fueling his haters, and he needs to write this. He needs to write this next offseason.
Yeah, he's not wrong, but I was thinking about this today, actually. Jason Light does cover up his mistakes quickly. He did roll the dice last year. Okay, we need one more year. I have other needs, and we're going to roll one more year with Vincent Jackson.
Right.
It backfired, blew up in his face. This year, okay, I have other needs, but I'm going to, as far as the defensive end, edge rushing goes, I'm going to put, all my eggs in with Jarquez Smith. Blew up in his face. But look what else blew up in his face. Second-round pick, Austin Jenkins. It was supposed to be this 1-2 combo with him and Brate. He gets just dropped out of the team.
Right.
Here we are, less than a year later. Boom, we got O.J. Howard, best tight end combination in the league. Yes, Vincent Jackson blew up in our face. Boom. Here we are. What are we doing this year? Who do we got?
We got Mike Evans. We got Deshaun Jackson. We got Adam Humphries. We got Chris Godwin.
Chris Godwin. So he fixed that.
Yeah.
Kicker. boom, Roberto Aguilar blew up in his face. Who do we got? Pat Murray. Seems to be working out, it's a very small sample size, but
Murray has like 2 kicks.
If the universe was fair, he'd probably be still kicking from the Bucs than he was, 3-4 years ago.
Sure,
he'd still be the kicker. So whatever blows. Oh, and look at this. Like when we did I think it was our original 53-man roster, and they're only going to take 2 QBs this year because there's James Winston and Ryan Griffith.
Right.
The very next day after we recorded that, they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick. We're like, okay, well, look at it now. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick went down, and Jameis is hurt. Who do you're pretty damn glad that he signed Ryan Fitzpatrick right about now.
Right.
So, yes, a couple of things have blown up his face, but he fixes it really fast. He has a very strong track record of taking a weak position on the team, and the next year it's one of the strongest. He did it at tight end. He did it wide receiver. He's done it at safety. And I think next year he'll be looking at cornerback and defensive end and running back.
Alrighty. I agree. Chef Aaron continues, says, offense, where the hell were you? Offensive line easily had maybe the worst day as a unit. Donovan Smith is looking like he is at best an average left tackle and inconsistent. I would not necessarily disagree with you on that. But as an average left tackle, that still doesn't necessarily get you fired.
Yeah, especially in the National Football League as a left tackle.
Right.
Yeah, if you're going to take the Carolina game in a microcosm, yeah, he's right.
He says Dirk needs to stop switching Pamphil and Evan Smith in the line and stay with Pamphil. He says, I do believe Pamphil earned the job last year and is looking like he's getting shafted, and I worry because he's not going to want to re-sign. That's right. Kevin Pamphil is in a contract year this year.
So is Evan Smith. And,
they are. That's right.
Yeah, and I'm glad Chef thinks that Kevin Pamphil won the job last year for all the training camps and team meetings and closed practices he's been to. And I'm glad that he knows what Kevin Pamphil's feeling about him not wanting to sign by splitting time. Something's going on there. I'm just being snotty, Chef. Something's going on there, and we don't know what it is. Somebody hasn't asked the right question yet. And somebody's going to ask the right question, and Derek's either going to say, that's none of your business, or he's going to tell you exactly what's going on. Because I said this, I think, during the InstantCast. There's a big enough sample size now where you can pick one or the other. Right. I really, really, really do not think, and it might be more me as a fan not wanting my team that I love organizationally to act this way, as in to split time with Kevin Pamphil, knowing that Evan Smith isn't as good, just to drive down the price to sign him next year. I cannot accept that as a fan. It's so wrong on so many levels, but it's the only narrative that makes sense because we don't know what's going on. So,
yeah, the only other one that I can think of, and I don't like this one as a fan, is that Evan Smith went in there and knocked on Dirk Cutter's door and said, look, I've been around here, I earned this, I've played this, or somebody said, you're paying me X amount of dollars to be here, and I'm here as a backup, and you've got to get me in more. Or somebody has told him you have to get Evan Smith in more. I don't know. I don't think that's the only other thing I could think it could possibly be. What you just said there about doing this on purpose to drive down the price, that's icky.
Yeah.
And you might be right, but that's icky.
It's icky, it's dirty, it's crappy. Yeah. Plus, you're hurting your team if you know he's the better player.
Yeah.
I just hope it's not some kind of sabermetrics thing. Like, Evan Smith blocks better going from north to west or west to east on a football field or 1:00 games during the third quarter. This guy blocks better than that guy. I don't think it's that either. I don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is. I don't.
To just say that, well, he's earned the right to play, to have more playing time, Evan Smith has. That just doesn't seem to be enough. Like there seems to be more to it than that. And
if he's earned it, then he's earned. You don't earn like
part-time playing.
Yeah, you don't earn a part-time gig. It's we do that with our safeties. We do it with our defensive line, running backs, wide receivers, but not offensive. It's never been like that. It's just, it's like one of those golden rules. Like you get your 5 and you roll with them.
Yeah. Chef continues. He says, Doug had a decent day, especially when there are 0 holes to run through. Wide receivers did okay with what Jameis was throwing to him. If Jameis is hurt, Dirk needs to sit him down and put in Fitz. His accuracy was so horrific, it was unbearable to watch. We've already covered quite a bit of that.
Yeah.
He says, at 2-5, it's going to take an even bigger miracle than last year to climb out of, and these players appear so dejected, I don't know if they have not only the confidence, but the mindset to get it done. I was going to bring this up on the InstantCast, but Dirk needs to get rid of the goddamn ping pong table. These guys are more focused on ping pong tournaments than frickin' playbook, it seems. Routes and schemes keep getting screwed up, and it's lack of focus. This team isn't good enough to have the leisure, or to have this leisure when they put in that shit. It's a little sheet emoji, a poop emoji, on the field. It says, hashtag it's a Bucs life is the perfect hashtag for this team right now. I'd say more hashtag that's my Bucs, but that's just me.
Remember when Apple tried to tell everybody that was chocolate ice cream? For like a year.
Yeah.
They're like, no, that's chocolate ice cream. That's not poop. And now they're just like, they're actually saying poop emojis on like their commercials. So anyway, he's spot on with that. What are you going to say? I don't know about the ping pong table. Like, I don't know because, I'm a gamer. And it took me probably till like my early 30s to actually have enough discipline to put the game down and start doing the stuff I really needed to do, like laundry or make dinner or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like if I had free time, I was sitting down and playing the game and just sort of pushing everything else off. I just don't think they're in the build. Like they're in the classroom. The ping pong table is not in the classroom. Now there's some young guys in there. So are they in the classroom just really thinking about who they're going to, if they're texting someone and talking trash about the ping pong table? Maybe. I don't know. I don't. I think it's just, honestly, I think it's a silly narrative. We talked a little bit about it, but we thought it was because not the ping pong table was a lack of focus, but they had a lack of focus. And by taking the ping pong table out of the locker room, or I said cut it into little kindling and set it on fire in front of it at practice, was like, now, do I have your attention, gentlemen? So that sort of thing. But they think it's fine, and I'm not there every day. They know, they have the pulse of their team.
Sure.
So I think that's sort of I get it. I do get it because I saw Chef tweet something out about if I hear like a ping pong game going on one more time during a locker room interview, I'm going to lose it because you do. Like during the week when they're at One Buc and they're interviewing guys from the locker, you can just hear it in the background.
There's always someone on that ping pong table.
Yeah. So
always.
But I don't think that's the problem, the ping pong table. But I do think, lack of focus is.
I would agree. I'm right there with you, Ren, as far as it's not ping pong itself. Ping pong in and of itself is not the culprit. It might even be a good, distraction's not the right word. What's the right word? Like, stress relief. I don't know. Like it's the thing that helps. Yeah, I don't know. There might be a good thing to have it in there, but I think it was Cutter or somebody who said, listen, ping pong is not causing people to lose. That it could be something very, very different. But as you said, it's just that idea of, hey, we're going to get serious. We're going to change the attitude around here a little bit. And I get that aspect. And I think that's what Chef is really going for there on that as well. So I'm with you. If it was me, I'd probably do it. But again, I am the father of a 5-year-old right now, and that's how I treat 5-year-olds. And these are grown men. So two different things. But like I said, I'm not the coach. And Dirk Cutter is. So, well, Ren, that's going to do it for all of our emails. And that then means that this segment is wrapped up, and not just the segment, but the episode as well. Before we get out of here, do you got any final thoughts on anything that we've talked about today?
No, I think we have talked about it just the perfect amount.
All righty. Well, guys, as a final reminder, you can get in touch with us about anything that we have talked about today at facebook.com/thepewtercast or on Twitter @thepewtercast. Or if you're a little more winded than just 140 characters, or 280 if you're one of those special people, you can email us to thepewtercast@gmail.com. Ren, why don't you let the fine people out there know where they can find you on the internet?
Easiest way is to find me on Twitter @Rendax, REN_DAXT. I'm always down to talk Buccaneers football. That's my new
your new cadence. Yeah. I like it. I like it. Keep it.
You're just trying to move along. You don't want to talk about it. Okay.
You can find me personally on Twitter @BrentAllenLive or at facebook.com/BrentAllenLive. And again, you follow the show @thepewtercast, facebook.com/pewtercast. That is going to do it for us for this week. Until next time, which right now is going to be on Saturday morning, Ren, we'll have our Buck in the News, where we'll wrap up all of the headlines and all the news and gossip and not really gossip, but whatever, all the storylines coming out of One Buc Place. We'll take a look at injury reports, any transactions that the Buccaneers have made. That all is coming up on our Buck in the News show, which will be out on Saturday morning, so you guys be on the lookout for that. And until then, guys, we'll close this out as we always say, go Bucs.
Happy Halloween!
All right.
Cut.
Cut.